Imagine you're face to face with three outlaws on a sun-scorched frontier street. You reach for your six-shooter, but then one of them lifts a strange metal beast, 7 barrels, all aimed at your chest. You've never seen anything like it. With a single pull of the trigger, the sky rips open with smoke, fire, and death. That moment wasn't just about survival. It was about madness disguised as innovation. The Wild West was a laboratory of desperation, and the weapons it produced weren't just deadly, they were experimental nightmares. These are the 10 most terrifying frontier weapons ever built, and by the end, you'll wonder how anyone lived long enough to tell the tale. The Colt Walker, you pick up this revolver and immediately realize something's wrong. It weighs as much as a rifle and feels like you're holding a small cannon. This isn't just any gun, this is the Colt Walker, and it was built to solve one simple problem. How do you stop a charging horse and its rider with a single shot? This is 1847, and Walker has just demonstrated why he begged Samuel Colt to build him a gun that could kill horses, not just riders. The Colt Walker wasn't just a revolver. It was portable artillery disguised as a handgun. At 4.5 pounds, lifting it was a workout, but firing it was like holding controlled lightning. Texas Rangers could stop cavalry charges dead in their tracks, the psychological impact as devastating as the physical damage. But here's where the story gets terrifying. These monsters had a habit of exploding in your hands. Imagine you're in a gunfight, you pull the trigger, and instead of your bullet flying toward the enemy, your own weapon becomes a grenade. Some soldiers literally lost fingers when their Walker decided to become a bomb instead of a gun. The massive powder charges that made it devastating to enemies occasionally made it deadly to its owner. Only about 1,100 were ever made because exploding guns aren't great for repeat customers. But every oversized Magnum today owes its existence to this iron monster. Modern collectors pay fortunes for surviving Walkers, not just as weapons, but as monuments to the moment America decided subtlety was for the weak and firepower was everything. But if one massive barrel was scary, imagine facing 7 barrels firing at once. The Knockgun. You're a British sailor in 1785, and pirates are swarming over the side of your ship like angry hornets. Cutlasses gleam in the moonlight, and your shipmates are falling one by one. You grab the strangest weapon on deck, what looks like 7 shotguns strapped together in a bundle. The pirates pause, confused by this mechanical monster in your hands. You pull one trigger, and 750 caliber balls explode outward simultaneously. The sound isn't gunfire, it's the crack of doom itself. When the smoke clears, the ship's deck looks like a slaughterhouse. Bodies are scattered everywhere, and the surviving pirates are diving overboard in terror. You've just witnessed the Knockgun's devastating power, one trigger pull that could clear an entire boarding party. Ship captains loved these British beasts because they turned any sailor into a one-man army capable of repelling entire crews of attackers. But here's the brutal reality you're about to discover. Newton's third law is merciless. 7 bullets going forward means 7 times the recoil coming back into your shoulder. The force slams you backward against the ship's railing, your shoulders screaming in agony. Some sailors were knocked unconscious by their own weapons. Others suffered broken bones. Your gun just saved your life and tried to kill you at the same time. When these British naval weapons made it to American frontier towns, saloon owners discovered their terrifying effectiveness for crowd control. Nothing ended a bar fight faster than the threat of turning everyone into Swiss cheese with one trigger pull. While some weapons announced themselves with thunder, others were masters of disguise. Apache revolver? You're walking down a gas-lit Parisian street in 1865 when a well-dressed gentleman approaches. He seems harmless enough until he smiles and shows you his pocket watch. Except it's not a watch. He folds something, clicks something else, and suddenly he's holding brass knuckles. Another adjustment and a blade springs out. One more movement and you're staring down the barrel of a revolver. Your mugger just revealed he's carrying 3 weapons disguised as one, and you never saw it coming. This is Apache revolver, the shape-shifting nightmare that French street gangs used to terrorize Paris. Named after the notorious Les Apaches gang, this mechanical transformer could adapt to any violent situation without changing weapons. Fold the barrel down for brass knuckles, flip out the blade for knife work, keep it straight for 6 shots of close-range devastation. Urban predators could punch, stab, or shoot, depending on what the situation demanded. But here's the catch you'd discover if you survived the encounter. Trying to be 3 weapons at once means being mediocre at all 3. The barrel was too short for accurate shooting beyond arm's reach, the blade was too small for serious knife fighting, and the brass knuckles were awkwardly shaped. It was the ultimate jack of all trades and master of none, except looking intimidating in dark alleys. These French street sweepers found their way to American cities, where gang members loved the intimidation factor. Nothing said, "Don't mess with me," like casually revealing your innocent-looking object was actually 3 different ways to end someone's life. Though banned in France by 1900, surviving Apaches became prized collector's items, representing humanity's eternal quest to build the perfect multi-tool and our tendency to complicate simple solutions. But while some weapons relied on surprise, others just said, "Screw it," and went full Terminator. The Gatling gun. Picture this. You're a Confederate soldier charging across an open field, rebel yell echoing from 1,000 throats, certain that your cavalry charge will break the Union line. Then you hear a sound you've never heard before, not the crack of rifles, but a mechanical grinding like some iron demon chewing steel. You look ahead and see 10 barrels rotating around a central axis, spitting fire and lead at an impossible rate. Your charge falters as men around you drop like wheat before a scythe. Dr. Richard Gatling thought he could end wars by making them too horrible to fight. Instead, he invented the appetite for industrial-scale killing. One operator behind those spinning barrels could outgun entire companies of riflemen, turning cavalry charges from tactical maneuvers into suicide missions. Native American warriors called it the gun that shoots like rain, a poetic description of mechanized slaughter. But this mechanical monster was hungry for ammunition, trained crews, and perfect positioning. You jam it in the heat of battle, and you're dead. You lose your supporting infantry, and you become a sitting duck with an expensive paperweight. The weapon that promised tactical supremacy demanded logistical perfection, making it as much a burden as a blessing in frontier warfare. From wiping out Native American war parties to modern miniguns on attack helicopters, every automatic weapon traces its DNA back to these spinning tubes of death. The Gatling didn't end wars. It industrialized them, proving that mechanical efficiency could multiply human lethality exponentially. Today, the principle lives on in every rotary cannon that turns aircraft into flying dragons, spitting thousands of rounds per minute at targets below. While machines grew complex, some genius decided to go back to basics with a twist. The Elgen Pistol. You're a U.S. Navy officer boarding a pirate vessel in 1840, cutlass-wielding buccaneers charging across the deck toward you. You raise your pistol, fire your single shot, and drop the first attacker. But 3 more are rushing you and there's no time to reload. Instead of panic, you smile and press a release mechanism. An 11-inch Bowie knife springs from beneath your pistol barrel with a metallic click. The pirates' confident grins vanish as they realize your empty gun just became a deadly blade. This is the Elgen Pistol's moment of glory, the seamless transition from range to melee combat that naval officers desperately needed in boarding actions. Fire your .54 caliber shot, then immediately continue the fight with cold steel. No weapon switching, no fumbling for a separate blade, just fluid movement from gunpowder to edged combat. Pirates didn't see it coming because it defied conventional weapon logic. But you'd quickly discover the design's fatal flaw. That massive knife made the gun nose-heavy and awkward to aim. Drawing it from a holster was like trying to pull a small sword while keeping a loaded pistol ready. If the spring mechanism jammed during combat, you'd be stuck with a useless knife attached to an empty gun, the worst of both worlds when your life depended on either working perfectly. Only 150 were manufactured by C.B. Allen of Springfield, Massachusetts, making survivors worth more than luxury cars today. They represent humanity's eternal quest to build the perfect weapon and our tendency to overthink simple problems. The Elgen proved that sometimes combining two good ideas creates one mediocre weapon, teaching future designers that specialization often beats combination in life or death situations. But while some weapons revealed themselves dramatically, others hid in the most unlikely places. Pegle Pistol. You're sitting in a frontier saloon when a limping Civil War veteran shuffles through the door, wooden leg tapping against the floorboards. The local bully decides this one-legged man looks like easy prey and starts hassling him for drinks and money. You feel sorry for the disabled vet until he calmly sits down, unscrews his prosthetic leg, and extracts a complete pistol from inside the hollow wooden limb. The bully's face goes white as he realizes he just threatened someone carrying a hidden gun where no one would ever think to look. This was the ultimate concealed carry solution for an era when being defenseless meant being dead. Civil War amputees refused to be victims in a frontier where weakness invited predation. Some brilliant and desperate individuals transformed their prosthetics into secret weapons, turning symbols of loss into instruments of lethal surprise. Nobody searches a cripple's artificial limb, making it the perfect hiding place for a last resort weapon. But you'd witness the weapon's limitations in action. Fire once, and the secret's out forever. The time required to unscrew the leg and prepare the gun meant hoping your enemy was patient enough to wait for you to literally disarm yourself. If the confrontation went wrong, you'd be fighting with one leg while trying to operate a single-shot weapon, turning desperation into near impossibility. These weapons proved that Americans will turn any disadvantage into a potential weapon. Few survive today, but they represent the frontier spirit that refused to accept defeat even when missing body parts. They highlight the desperation of an era where survival often depended on outsmarting rather than outgunning your opponents, embodying American ingenuity at its most desperate and most brilliant. While Americans improvised, the British were busy trying to reinvent the wheel. The Webley Fosbury automatic revolver. Imagine you're a British officer in colonial India, 1902, facing a charging group of hostile tribesmen. You draw what looks like a normal revolver and fire, but instead of manually cocking for the next shot, the gun operates itself. The recoil slides the barrel and cylinder backward, automatically rotating to the next chamber and cocking the hammer. You're firing as fast as you can pull the trigger, watching in amazement as your revolver has somehow become a semi-automatic. Your attackers stop in confusion, never having seen a gun that seems to reload itself. Colonel George Fosbury had solved what seemed like an impossible problem, combining revolver reliability with automatic pistol speed. Each shot's recoil moved the barrel and cylinder along zigzag grooves, creating a mechanical symphony of precisely timed violence. British officers could dump 6 shots as fast as their fingers could move, giving them a crucial advantage in colonial conflicts where superior firepower often meant survival. But you'd discover this mechanical marvel's fatal flaw in the worst possible moment. All that sliding and rotating meant more parts to break when you needed them most. Dirt jammed the mechanism, special ammunition was hard to find in remote outposts, and firing from awkward positions, like when diving for cover, made it malfunction completely. The weapon that promised the best of both worlds often delivered the worst of both instead. Only 5,000 were manufactured before conventional semi-automatic pistols made them obsolete. Today, they're expensive curiosities, proving that sometimes innovation is just mechanical showing off. The Webley Fosbury represented the pinnacle of revolver evolution and simultaneously proved that evolution sometimes leads to dead ends, teaching future designers that complexity isn't always superior to simplicity. But while one weapon automated the future, another tried to revolutionize the basic concept of shooting, the Porter turret revolver. Picture yourself as a firearms tester in 1851, examining inventor P.W. Porter's revolutionary new revolver design. He explains proudly how vertical cylinder rotation is superior to horizontal, how gravity will improve feeding, how his design will change warfare forever. You nod politely, then notice something that makes your blood run cold. 2 loaded chambers are pointing directly at your chest. Porter has created a weapon that's literally more dangerous to its user than to any enemy, and he's asking you to test fire it while those barrels aim at your vital organs. Porter believed conventional revolvers were inefficient, that vertical rotation would be faster and more reliable than horizontal. His engineering confidence was absolute until physics and common sense collided with mechanical reality. Every time you'd cock this weapon, you'd be pointing loaded chambers at yourself, turning each shot into a potential suicide attempt with mechanical assistance. Chain fires, misfires, or mechanical failures could send bullets straight into the shooter's chest or abdomen. Porter had inadvertently created a suicide device disguised as a revolver, proving that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas are revolutionary because they're too dangerous to implement. Physics doesn't forgive engineering arrogance, no matter how brilliant the theory sounds on paper. Exactly zero made it to mass production because nobody wanted to buy a gun that might kill them faster than their enemies could. The few prototypes that exist are in museums where they can't hurt anyone, serving as monuments to innovation unchecked by common sense. The Porter turret reminds us that sometimes the most brilliant mechanical ideas are brilliant precisely because they're too dangerous for real-world application. While experimental weapons courted disaster, one rifle changed everything about frontier warfare: the Henry rifle. You're a Union soldier in 1864, crouched behind cover while Confederate forces prepare to charge your position. Your fellow soldiers are frantically ramming powder and ball down their single-shot muskets, knowing they'll get one chance before the enemy reaches them with bayonets. But you're holding something different: a lever-action rifle with 15 rounds already loaded. As the rebels charge, you work the lever and fire, lever and fire, lever and fire, watching their faces change from confidence to terror as your single-shot rifle keeps shooting without stopping to reload. Benjamin Tyler Henry had looked at single-shot warfare and decided the entire concept was fatally flawed. His lever-action design promised sustained firepower in a world where missing your one shot meant death. Native Americans called it the spirit gun because it seemed to shoot forever, turning cavalry charges from tactical maneuvers into suicide missions against concentrated repeating fire. But you'd discover the rifle's vulnerability during that inevitable reload moment, pointing the muzzle skyward and feeding cartridges one by one through the barrel while enemies shot back. The brass frame couldn't handle powerful loads, and rimfire ammunition was weaker than centerfire alternatives. Loading was slow and exposed, leaving you vulnerable when you needed protection most. 14,000 rifles later, Winchester bought out Henry and perfected his design into the legendary lever actions that dominated the West. Every cowboy movie rifle owes its existence to Henry's innovation. He proved that in gunfights, volume of fire beats precision every time, changing not just weapons, but tactics, making sustained firepower more valuable than careful marksmanship in determining who lived and who died. But while rifles delivered sustained firepower, one final weapon specialized in instant crowd control: the duck's foot pistol. You're the captain of a merchant vessel in 1820, and your crew has decided they've had enough of your authority. 20 angry sailors surround you on deck, cutlasses and belaying pins in their hands, confident that one man can't fight them all. You reach into your coat and withdraw what looks like the strangest pistol they've ever seen. 4 barrels splayed out like a duck's webbed foot. Their confident grins fade as they realize those barrels are pointing in 4 different directions, and with one trigger pull, you could hit multiple targets simultaneously. This was the ultimate crowd control weapon before a crowd control was even a concept. Ship captains and prison wardens faced unique tactical problems. How do you threaten multiple people at once when conventional weapons can only target one person at a time? The duck's foot pistol answered with brutal mathematical precision, creating a lethal cone of destruction that could disperse hostile groups with psychological impact as much as physical damage. You'd fire once and watch 4 .45 caliber balls spread outward, potentially hitting several attackers simultaneously. The mutineers would scatter, never knowing if they were in the cone of fire until it was too late. But beyond 10 feet, this weapon was completely useless. The spread that made it deadly up close made it worthless at any meaningful distance. Plus, reloading 4 separate barrels took forever, leaving you defenseless after your one moment of intimidation. Sometimes reputation matters more than reality in weapons design. Just showing someone a duck's foot pistol often ended confrontations before they started. Nobody wanted to test whether they were close enough for it to work effectively. These weapons prove that sometimes the threat of overwhelming force is more valuable than the force itself, making intimidation as important as ammunition. These weren't just weapons. They were mechanical dreams and nightmares that shaped the most dangerous frontier in human history. Each one tells a story of innovation, desperation, and the eternal human quest to build the perfect tool for survival. So now that you've seen the darker side of frontier innovation, we want to hear from you. Which of these weapons shocked you the most? Would you have dared to fire the Knockgun? Carried an Apache revolver in your coat? Or would you draw the line at the porter turret pointed at your own chest? Let us know in the comments. We read every one, and if you want more forgotten weapons, strange machines, and hidden chapters of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning.